We begin this morning with singer Maurice Gibb, who died during the night in Miami.
Maurice Gibb was one-third of global mega band The Bee Gees. In a career spanning 4 decades, The Bee Gees sold over 220 million records. They were best known for their disco classics, high-pitched singing voices, and bouffant hairstyles.
We always call ourselves triplets till something went wrong with Barry.
While his brothers sang lead vocals, Maurice was the hidden talent that held the band together.
Barry was the brains behind the band. Maurice was the musical director.
He just had a sense of how the sound should fit together.
But on Wednesday, January 8th, 2003, Maurice Gibb collapsed in agony at his Miami home. He died 4 days later at the age of just 53.
Maurice Gibb's death came out of nowhere. According to those around him, he was a fit and healthy guy.
It was a normal day. He was normal. He didn't look sick.
Why Maurice went from healthy to collapse to death in 4 days is a mystery. I intend to determine exactly what happened to him in those final days that led to his death.
Dr. Michael Hunter is a world-renowned forensic pathologist. He's performed over 4,000 autopsies to investigate and reveal the cause of death. Today, he's the chief medical examiner in one of America's biggest cities.
This is the autopsy report for Maurice Gibb of the Bee Gees. From the information within this concise report, I can build a picture of the final days, hours, and minutes of his life. I hope to determine why one-third of the world's most famous pop trio died suddenly and unexpectedly in the hospital.
December 22nd, 2002. 3 weeks before his death, Maurice celebrates his 53rd birthday with his 2 children, Samantha and Adam, and his wife Yvonne at one of their homes in Miami.
Right before he died, Maurice seemed to be in the semi-retired pop star lifestyle. He spent all his time with his family.
In the months prior to his death, the Bee Gees had been taking a break from touring, but Maurice is busy with his music, working on new material.
He was jamming and composing with Michael Jackson. He had composed a couple of string pieces. He was working on a couple of film soundtracks. He seemed to be living a really happy, contented life.
The autopsy report tells me that Maurice was 5 foot 8 inches and 149 pounds. That's a body mass index of 22.6, a very healthy weight.
Maurice's trim physique is partly due to his passion for paintball, a hobby he'd taken up in later life.
Maurice fell into paintball and he called it the most rock and roll thing he ever found. And he opened a paintball store in North Miami called Commander Moe's Paintball Shop. He sponsored a paintball team. Maurice loved him some paintball.
To all appearances, he seems to be in good shape for his age.
Maurice just seemed to be the pinnacle of health. He was one of the ones that would see out and about, very energetic, very active person.
Dr. Hunter is examining Gibb's autopsy report to investigate the cause of death.
The first thing I noticed is a fresh 12-inch surgical wound running up his torso. From its position on the abdomen, I can see that it was a result of major surgery on Maurice's digestive system, and from its freshness, it seems to be a very recent procedure.
Dr. Hunter has found another clue in the report, which also points to recent surgery.
I noticed that Gibb's vocal cords are swollen, and this is due to intubation, placing tubes in his throat to help him breathe. Intubation is used in medical emergencies, when someone's unconscious and has difficulty breathing. It's clear from the report that Maurice had undergone emergency surgery on his digestive system prior to his death. I want to know what role surgery played in the events which led up to Maurice Gibb's death.
In the aftermath of Maurice's death, the world was asking the same question. Dr. Hunter believes the answer to this mystery lies buried in Gibb's autopsy report.
My investigation has to focus on why Maurice Gibb had this medical emergency and why, in spite of his surgical intervention, he died.
Born in 1949 and brought up in a deprived part of northern England, twins Maurice and Robin Gibb started performing from a young age with their older brother, Barry.
The Bee Gees grew up in absolute gutter poverty. They had nothing. And the boys began to sing on street corners. Maurice never really had a childhood. And this affected all the Bee Gees, but it seemed to have affected Maurice particularly.
In 1958, when Maurice was just 9 years old, the Gibb family emigrated to Australia. Along with Barry and Robin, there was older sister Leslie and baby brother Andy, who later also had success as a singer. To earn pocket money, the brothers formed a band, entertaining crowds at car races.
They would sing on the back of a truck, and people would throw money at them. It was kind of like upmarket busking, I suppose.
Before long, they were discovered, their close-knit harmonies and confidence apparent even on early TV appearances. They called themselves the Bee Gees, short for Brothers Gibb, and soon started racking up hits.
They actually were something of quality other than just a novelty act, these 3 little kids.
With Barry and Robin alternating on lead vocals, and Maurice providing instrumentals, from the late 60s their career took off worldwide. In 1977, the Bee Gees' music provided the perfect soundtrack for John Travolta's disco dancing in the film Saturday Night Fever. This was the best-selling soundtrack album in the world for the next 15 years, and propelled the Bee Gees to superstardom.
They could never have dreamed that Night Fever and Staying Alive and How Deep Is Your Love would be such huge number ones.
Wednesday, January 8th, 2003, 2 p.m. Stadium Diner, Miami Beach, Florida. 4 days before his death, Maurice arrives for lunch with his family.
It was like a dream. I mean, Maurice right here in our little diner and enjoying his food and being nice with all of us and introducing himself and being very friendly with everybody. He was a very warm person.
This is one of Maurice's favorite haunts, a place he feels he can escape the limelight and just melt into the background.
He would always have a veggie omelet. He would like it sauteed in the pan. He'd like it cooked on the grill. He'd have hash browns. And he would always pretty much eat the same thing.
Dr. Hunter has found something in the report, which reveals why Gibb was cautious about his diet.
I noticed in the autopsy report that Maurice is allergic to strawberries. That's an unusual and potentially lethal allergy. But I see he has no evidence that he's eaten strawberries, and I'd imagine he was very careful to avoid them.
Not long into the meal, Maurice starts complaining about pains in his stomach. But he's discreet and ignores the discomfort.
Gibb's stomach pain is the first sign that there's something going wrong with his digestive system, and there are a lot of possible causes that we need to consider. The most obvious reason is food poisoning, but this rarely results in major abdominal surgery. It usually causes nausea and vomiting, and there was no report of Maurice being sick, so I think we can rule that out.
It was a normal day. He was normal. He didn't look sick.
Whatever is troubling Maurice Gibb seems to pass, and he and his family finish their meal.
Knowing that Gibb will soon undergo emergency surgery, the pain he was suffering in the diner is a warning sign. Underneath the surface, there's something going catastrophically wrong. But at this stage, Maurice was feeling only mild discomfort. He had no clue what lay ahead. Wednesday, January 8th, 2003, 5:30 p.m.
Gibbs are home from a diner. Morris suddenly collapses in excruciating abdominal pain. His son Adam calls 911.
Two conditions that can cause this instantly spring to mind: appendicitis and peptic ulcer. A peptic ulcer can be a very nasty condition, causing severe stomach pain and internal bleeding.
And Dr. Hunter believes he's found a probable cause in Morris Gibbs' lifestyle.
Smoking can be a key factor in developing stomach ulcers.
Reportedly, Morris Gibb was a heavy smoker, a habit he started as a young man.
When we were traveling to London, you couldn't smoke on the plane, and Matt Manelli, the bass player at the time, and Morris raced off of the plane to grab their smoke.
Gibbs' lifetime of smoking appears to have had a significant effect on the health of his heart.
I can see from the autopsy that Morris also had atherosclerosis. This is a potentially serious heart condition where his arteries are clogged by plaque. And his smoking is a major risk factor for this.
As a heavy smoker, Morris was also at high risk of developing a stomach ulcer. But do Morris's sudden pains match the symptoms?
Stomach ulcers tend to come on very gradually and are unlikely to cause sudden abdominal pain. Appendicitis is a much more likely cause. And appendicitis is a painful inflammation of the appendix, a pouch connected to the large intestine. The inflammation can build over several hours. If it's not removed quickly, the appendix can burst with life-threatening complications. Could a burst appendix have been what was causing Morris such agonizing pain?
Soon after Morris's son calls 911, the emergency services arrive, and he's rushed to Mount Sinai Medical Center, Miami Beach. Doctors are trying to work out the underlying cause.
I've investigated and dismissed the most obvious causes such as food poisoning, allergies, and peptic ulcer. And appendicitis is another possibility, but there's nothing in the autopsy report that suggests this was an issue.
But Dr. Hunter has found new clues in Gibbs' toxicology report. It suggests he was using illicit drugs.
The toxicology report notes that there were cannabinoids in Gibbs' urine, and this tells me that he had recently used marijuana.
Back in their heyday, Morris and his BG brothers lived the rock and roll lifestyle to the full.
The 70s were a crazy time. If I'd been in the band back then, at this point I might be dead or in jail.
But when the Bee Gees were topping the charts in the 70s, drugs were very much part of the scene.
All bands have squeaky clean images, and then you go behind the hotel room door and you find out there's a whole bacchanal going on. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Reportedly, the Bee Gees were no exception. But could smoking pot have contributed to Morris's death?
I've never come across a case in which I've considered cannabis being the direct cause of someone's death. There are traces of cannabis in his urine, and I think that suggests that he's an occasional user. But often, cannabis can be considered a gateway drug.
Is it possible Morris used more dangerous drugs during the band's heyday?
Cocaine was introduced to wide popular use in the early 70s, and people overdid it. You didn't know what was a safe dose, what could lead to psychosis, what could lead to death.
Cocaine played a significant role in the life and death of the Bee Gees' younger brother, Andy. With his trademark Gibb falsetto, Andy had a successful solo career with hits such as Shadow Dancing. He was born 9 years after Morris, but never joined the Bee Gees. Yet as a solo artist, he racked up 6 top 10 singles in the US. But Andy also battled a drug addiction and died in 1988.
Andy Gibb could not handle what came along with being a famous Gibb brother. He had a terrible cocaine addiction, and he got clean, but he died of a heart attack.
Andy's official cause of death was an infection of the heart. Years of cocaine abuse weakened his immune system, making his heart more susceptible to disease. Could Morris have shared his brother's coke habit, and could it have contributed to his death?
Of course, one's decision to take drugs is an individual choice. There's a school of thought that suggests that you're genetically predisposed to the way that you deal around drugs. So how addicted you become, the effects they have on you.
Morris was open about the fact he'd briefly tried cocaine in the past.
He did cocaine for about 6 months in the late 70s, and to his credit, he said, I can't do this anymore.
The autopsy report doesn't show any trace of cocaine or its breakdown product, and these can stay in your system for many days, so it's pretty clear to me that he wasn't using cocaine around the time of his death.
Early evening, Wednesday, January 8th, 2003. Mount Sinai Hospital, Miami. 4 days before his death. Unsure about the cause of Morris's chronic abdominal pain, the doctors keep him in overnight for observation. He's given morphine as pain relief, and exploratory surgery is planned for the following morning. Having ruled out illegal narcotics, Dr. Hunter is now considering a different type of addiction.
There is another drug that can be fatally toxic if taken to excess. It can affect many different organ systems, including that of the stomach and the liver. And it's a drug that Morris was known to have enjoyed: alcohol.
Morris was fresh to fame when he had his first taste of alcohol. It was none other than his hero, John Lennon, who reportedly offered 17-year-old Gibb his first serious drink.
John Lennon offered him a scotch and soda. And Morris said, if John Lennon had offered me cyanide, I would have drunk it. He said that 5 months before he was reading fan magazines, and now he was at a club with John Lennon and Keith Moon.
Now famous enough to hang out with his idols, this brief encounter with Lennon in 1967 kick-started Morris's lifelong love affair with the bottle.
Morris was the raver, he was the nightclub guy, he was the guy who was living the Saturday Night Fever existence.
They were just kids who suddenly had all this money, and so it made Morris a little insane, as I think it would do to any 18-year-old who suddenly had $20 million in his pocket.
In 1969, Morris married pop singer Lulu, but the couple separated after 4 years of marriage. Alcohol was the reason the marriage broke down.
They fought all the time, they were apart for long periods, and Lulu ended the marriage because she just couldn't get Morris to stop drinking.
Morris's battle with the bottle escalated throughout the late 60s and 70s, as the band went from hit to hit.
Must have been huge pressures on the Bee Gees, huge pressure to deliver the next hit single. It's a constant barrage. This is a great song, but where's the next one coming from?
And all the while, there were growing tensions between the brothers.
Barry was the alpha in this group, and Robin resisted him strenuously, and all the tension in the band sprang from that. Morris had the tragedy of having forced upon him the role of the enabling middle brother.
He wants to hang out with his brothers all day anyway, but to be in a band, touring around the world, recording 24/7.
Arguments over the direction the band was taking flared up easily, often resulting in one of the trio walking out. One particularly bad fight resulted in Robin leaving the band for a year.
I think the dynamic of the band stressed Morris and Robin tremendously, and I think Morris turned to alcohol as a way of suppressing whatever tensions and anger it rose in.
Soon, Morris's addiction to alcohol was starting to become obvious to those around him.
People often talk about, what makes one an alcoholic, or, when does drinking become a problem. I think one of the indicators of that is that when it stops being confined to something social, something in the home, and begins getting out of control, going into places, into environments where it shouldn't be, like the workplace.
He talks of storing 20 bottles in various places in Criterion Studios. He stopped playing in the studios, he stopped contributing to the song arrangements, he just sang harmony. And tellingly, on the tour of all the disco era, Morris never played bass on stage.
Long-term drinking causes fatal liver problems. If Morris continued to drink heavily throughout his life, then he may have ended up developing a chronic liver problem such as cirrhosis, leading to abdominal pain and possibly even collapse.
With the help of his second wife, Yvonne, who he married in 1975, Morris managed for a time to control his drinking. But in 1988, 15 years before he died, the death of his younger brother, Andy, sent him spiraling out of control.
Morris upped his drinking to really toxic levels after Andy died, and he entered a state of more or less walking unconsciousness for several years from the amount of alcohol he was drinking.
The experience of a bereavement and the feelings of grief and loss are arguably one of the most profound and difficult moments any of us will go through. Now, if you have a history of being depressed or perhaps even of using ways to avoid pain, then it's not surprising that a lot of people find that following grief, that they'll kind of revert back to those old ways, they'll go back into the darkness, revert back into those ways of coping.
Had Morris continued drinking after his younger brother Andy died, and could this have contributed to his own death? October 1991, Miami Beach. Gib had been on a brandy binge.
Morning, ladies. How are you?
What's going on?
I'm having breakfast. What do you think I'm doing?
What are you doing with that in your hand?
Gib's drinking brought the situation to a head.
Sam, give me your bag.
Morris's wife decided she was sick of his drinking.
I've had enough. I'm leaving.
Oh, you've done? Oh, you've done? Do help me along the way.
In his inebriated state, Morris lost control and pulled a loaded gun on his family.
Don't put the gun
I don't want to put it down.
Leave her out.
Just leave him alone.
Fearful for their lives, Yvonne fled with the children.
Hi, it's me.
The following day, Morris was overcome with guilt and begged his family to come home.
His wife told him she was not coming back until he did something about his alcoholism, and Morris went into rehab the next day. And I think that speaks to his devotion to his family and his understanding that he had a problem.
You're right. Sure.
To ensure that Morris never threatened his family again, he asked his daughter Samantha to throw away his gun.
Just throw it away. Just get rid of it. Hello, everybody. I'm Morris, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hello, Morris.
Morris became dedicated to his sobriety. He revealed in an interview that he gave the following year he was now attending AA meetings. Was the crippling pain causing Morris to collapse before his death in 2003 brought about by a relapse? Dr. Hunter is searching for telltale signs of alcoholism in Morris's autopsy report.
If Morris had fallen off the wagon and was drinking heavily in the weeks and months prior to his death, the evidence of that would be in the liver. The liver filters toxins from blood. With prolonged alcohol misuse, it loses some of its ability to break down fats, which can build up over time. A fatty liver is a sign that someone has a current drinking problem. I can see from Gibbs' autopsy that his liver is of normal weight and there's no evidence of fatty liver disease. At the time that he died, he was sober. But I'm interested to see whether his early excessive drinking led to more severe liver damage, possibly the root of his abdominal pain.
Even though Morris gave up drinking in later life, his excessive alcohol consumption as a younger man could have caused irreversible scarring to his liver, a condition called cirrhosis. Cirrhosis affects the liver's ability to function, is irreversible, and can lead to death. But surprisingly, when Morris died, his liver appears normal.
Despite his years of alcohol use, Gibbs' autopsy shows his liver had absolutely no signs of cirrhosis or any other serious problem. It's described as smooth and uniform throughout.
It would seem that true to his word, Morris had given up alcohol and remarkably done his body no real damage. Wednesday, January 8th, 2003. Evening, Mount Sinai Hospital, Miami. On the VIP ward, Morris's doctors start to consider the root of his pain might be something more obscure. He's kept in overnight while they manage his pain and plan exploratory surgery. But around 4 a.m. on Thursday, January 9th, Morris Gibb goes into cardiac arrest.
Come on.
Okay, stand back.
The resuscitation team rushed to Morris's aid.
Okay. Shut. Stand back. Shut.
Powerful shocks from a defibrillator managed to restart his heart. But Gibbs' life still hangs in the balance. He's rushed straight into the operating room.
His condition markedly worsened and required immediate medical intervention. I'd first be looking for something like a catastrophic hemorrhage or an issue with his intestine.
Gibb now undergoes Around 11 p.m., the doctors tell the family that Morris is showing little brain activity and is only being kept alive artificially. They now make the heartbreaking decision to switch off the life support machine. At 10 minutes past midnight on Sunday, January 12th, Morris Gibb dies.